The misclassification. The Galactic Concordance Archives, located in the heart of Nexus Prime, held the classified data of every species encountered across 12 spiral arms. Deep within its crystalline vaults, a file marked Species 7842H, Homo sapiens gathered digital dust, its threat assessment reading, negligible. Commander Zex Thor of the Vraxian Intelligence Corps couldn't believe what he was reading. His 4 eyes scanned the document repeatedly, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. According to the Academy of Xenological Studies, humans were Class 5 beings, barely above agricultural civilizations. No natural armor, no venom sacs, no psionic abilities. Their homeworld, Earth, was a death trap of extreme weather, tectonic instability, and aggressive microorganisms, yet somehow they'd survived. Weak bones, thin skin, minimal sensory capabilities, Zex Thor read aloud to his aide, a young Keltharian named Sira. It says here they require 8 hours of unconsciousness daily just to function. Their young take nearly 2 decades to reach maturity. How did they even achieve space flight? Sira's scales rippled with amusement. Perhaps someone took pity on them, Commander? Shared technology? Perhaps. Zex Thor closed the file, his attention shifting to more pressing matters. The annual Concordance Games were approaching, and as the Intelligence Corps' representative, he needed to finalize the combat roster. The games served multiple purposes: entertainment for the masses, live combat assessment of species capabilities, and most importantly, a subtle way to rank military threats without direct warfare. This year's games promised to be historic. The Carwellel Dominion had entered their champion, a creature standing 4 meters tall with molecular-dense armor plating. The Sethian Hive sent their psychic warrior, capable of projecting fear directly into opponents' minds. Even the peaceful Luminari had entered a contestant, a being of pure energy contained in a hard light frame. The new species petition list, Sira said, projecting a holographic document. 3 minor civilizations requesting entry to the games. Zex Thor's eyes widened at the third name. Humans? The Class 5 species wants to participate. They discovered the games through our public broadcasts. Their diplomatic envoy insists it's about cultural exchange and proving their worth. Sira's tone suggested skepticism. They'll be slaughtered. Zex Thor felt an unusual twinge. Was it concern? The games operate under modified concordance law. Medical intervention is provided, but severe injury is expected. Death while discouraged happens. Their envoy was informed. They still want to proceed. Zex Thor considered rejecting the application outright, but protocol dictated that any concordance member species could participate if they met basic requirements. Have they selected a representative? A human female. Sarah Chin, former military, age 32 Earth years. Her biometrics are unremarkable. Standard human physiology. Sira pulled up a holographic image. The human stood at approximately 1.7 meters, tiny by arena standards. Her skin was a warm brown tone, dark hair pulled back in a practical style. The file listed her as a Special Forces operator, whatever that meant. Her expression in the photograph showed calm determination. What's her combat record? Classified by human authority, but they've vouched for her capability. She's undergone something called survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training, plus extensive combat experience in hostile environments. Zex Thor clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Hostile environments? Their own planet, perhaps? Fighting what weather patterns? Despite his sarcasm, something about the human's eyes in that photograph unsettled him. They held a quality he'd seen in apex predators, a quiet, patient awareness. Accept the application, Zex Thor decided. But place her in the preliminary rounds against Tier 3 opponents. No need to make her death meaningless. She'll get a few matches, the humans will have their cultural exchange, and she can withdraw with honor. As you command. Sira paused. Commander, there's a notation here from the human envoy. They want their representative to participate in all challenges, including the survival courses. All challenges? Zex Thor's mandibles clicked rapidly. That includes the Hellscape Run, the Void Maze, the Predator's Game. Those are designed for species with multiple redundant organs, poisonous blood, or regenerative capabilities. They were explicit in their request. 3 weeks later, Sarah Chin arrived at the Concordance Arena Station, a massive construct orbiting the gas giant Valtor. The station could house 50,000 spectators and contained environmental zones replicating dozens of planetary conditions. As she stepped off the human transport vessel, She drew stares from every species present. A KRYL warrior rumbled past, each footfall making the deck plates vibrate. Sarah barely reached its hip. A pack of Fenrir hunters, wolf-like beings with metallic fur and plasma-generating organs, watched her with predatory interest. Their translator implants probably told them she was prey species. "Welcome, Representative Chin." Zexthor approached, lowering his centauroid body in a gesture of respect. "I am Commander Zexthor. I'll serve as your liaison during your stay." "Thank you, Commander." Her voice was steady, unafraid. Up close, Zexthor noticed details the photograph hadn't captured. Old scars on her hands, the economical way she moved, the constant micro-adjustments of her position to keep threats in her peripheral vision. "I must be honest with you," Zexthor said as they walked toward the competitors' quarters. "The Academy's assessment of your species suggests you may be unprepared for the challenges ahead. There is no shame in withdrawing." Sarah smiled, a curious expression that showed teeth, predator's teeth, Zexthor realized with start. Small, perhaps, but definitely carnivorous. "Commander, can I share something about human history?" she asked. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us daily. Ice ages that should have wiped us out. Megafauna that saw us as food. Diseases that killed millions. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We were slow compared to our prey and weak compared to our predators. Then how? We learned to persist, to adapt, to never ever give up." She paused at a viewport, gazing at the arena below. "We learned to turn every disadvantage into a weapon. Our weak jaws? We invented tools. Our slow speed? We invented endurance hunting. We chased prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. Our fragile bodies? We invented armor, weapons, tactics, strategy." Zexthor felt his confidence wavering. "The other competitors are professional warriors, bred and trained for combat. So am I." Sarah turned to face him, and again that unsettling quality in her eyes made him step back. "Commander, I appreciate your concern. But humans didn't survive Earth by being harmless. We survived by being the most persistent, adaptable and stubbornly determined species our planet ever produced. The Academy classified you as negligible." "I know." Her smile widened. "They won't make that mistake twice." That evening, Zexthor reviewed Sarah Chen's assigned matches. Her first opponent would be Crag the Ravager, a Thurian berserker with bone protrusions and regenerative healing. The second match, a Scythian warrior with basic psychic abilities. The third, one of the Fenrir pack hunters. Each opponent could kill her with a single attack. Zexthor drafted a message to the human diplomatic envoy, urging them to reconsider. Before sending it, he pulled up the file on species 7842H one more time. Something the report had mentioned caught his eye. Notable characteristic, persistence hunting methodology. Subject displays unusual psychological resilience to pain, fatigue and fear stimuli. He accessed the arena's historical database, searching for species with similar traits. The query returned 0 results. No other species hunted through exhaustion. Most predators in the galaxy used ambush tactics, venom or overwhelming force. The concept of chasing prey for hours, even days until it simply couldn't run anymore was disturbing. Zexthor deleted his message to the human envoy. Perhaps the arena would provide better data than the Academy ever could. The first blood. The arena preparation chamber hummed with energy as Sarah Chin checked her equipment one final time. The Concordance provided standard-issue combat gear, a flexible armor weave that could stop most energy weapons, a personal shield generator, and a choice of 3 weapons from the approved arsenal. Sarah had chosen differently than most competitors expected. A kinetic rifle? Her equipment officer, an insectoid chithari named Vess, clicked in confusion. Most species prefer plasma or particle weapons. Kinetics are primitive. Reliable, Sarah corrected, checking the rifle's action. The weapon fired solid projectiles using chemical propulsion, technology most galactic species had abandoned millennia ago. No energy signature to track, no heat buildup, no battery to deplete. Just physics. And your secondary weapon? Vess gestured to the blade on Sarah's hip. Combat knife. Carbon steel, human forged. She patted it affectionately. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Vess's antennae drooped skeptically but said nothing more. Through the chamber's viewing port, they could see the arena being configured for the first match. The environment shifted, nanobots restructuring the terrain into a rocky wasteland with scattered cover, neutral ground favoring neither competitor. Commander Zexthor entered, his expression grave. Representative Chen, your opponent has arrived. Crag the Ravager. He's won 47 consecutive matches. His species feels no pain due to a redundant nervous system, and his bones regenerate within minutes. He paused. It's not too late to withdraw. Noted. Sarah stood, rolling her shoulders. How long are matches? Until submission, incapacitation, or... Zexthor hesitated. Death. You can say it, Commander. Sarah's voice was calm. I've faced death before. I'm still here. The arena's announcement system crackled to life in a dozen languages. Preliminary Match 7. Crag the Ravager, Thurian Dominion, versus Sarah Chin, Human Confederation. Combatants to staging. The crowd's roar was deafening, 50,000 beings from across the galaxy, here to witness combat. Sarah walked through the tunnel toward the arena floor, her heartbeat steady, her breathing controlled. She'd learned long ago that fear was just information, adrenaline just fuel. Control them, use them. The arena floor was exactly as she'd seen, rocky terrain about 200 meters across, with scattered boulders providing cover. The artificial sun blazed overhead, and Sarah felt its heat. The environmental systems had set conditions to neutral, which meant hot by human standards. Across the arena, Crag emerged. He was massive. 3 meters of corded muscle, bone spurs protruding from his shoulders, forearms, and spine. His skin was a mottled gray-green, thick as armor plating. Twin tusks curved from his lower jaw. His weapon of choice, a massive war maul that crackled with electrical energy. The crowd's noise intensified. Through her translator implant, Sarah caught fragments. Won't last 30 seconds. What was she thinking? Mercy of the Concordance, that poor creature. Sarah tuned them out. She'd heard doubt before. Doubt was just noise. Combatants ready, the announcement system boomed. 3, 2, 1. Begin. Crag bellowed, a sound that shook the arena floor, and charged. His species' famous berserker rage, Sarah noted clinically. Straight-line attack, overwhelming force, meant to terrorize and crush. She didn't run. Instead, she moved laterally at an angle, letting him commit fully to his charge. At the last second, she dropped and rolled, coming up behind a boulder. Crag's maul struck where she'd been, cratering the arena floor and sending rock fragments flying. The crowd gasped. First blood to neither, but the human had evaded. Crag spun faster than Sarah expected. He wasn't just strong, he was trained. But training versus instinct were different things. Sarah had spent 20 years learning to read body language to anticipate movement. His weight shifted left before he moved left. His eyes tracked where he'd strike before the blow came. She fired 3 rounds from her kinetic rifle. The projectile struck Crag's chest armor-like skin and ricocheted off, barely scratching him. But that wasn't the point. The point was information. His hide was thick but not impenetrable, the bone spurs were likely weaker at the joints, and he flinched slightly when hit near the eyes. Crag roared again and charged, this time more cautiously, using his bulk to push through the scattered cover. Sarah retreated, firing periodically, not to kill but to probe, to test, to learn. She's running, someone in the crowd shouted. Coward. But Zexthor, watching from the command gallery, saw something different. The human wasn't running. She was making Crag chase her. And the Thurian, massive and powerful, was breathing harder with each passing minute. Sarah led him on a winding path through the arena, never in a straight line, always forcing him to turn, to adjust, to burn energy. She fired when he got close, forcing him to dodge or shield his eyes. She dropped small obstacles in his path, nothing that would stop him but enough to make him expend effort. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Crag's charges were slower now. His bellows less frequent. The arena's environmental controls maintained the heat, and Sarah watched as the massive warrior began to overheat. His species had evolved on a cold world. This temperature was manageable for them, but combined with intense exertion. She's exhausting him, Vess whispered in the gallery. By the concordance, she's persistence hunting him. Zexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly. Just like the Academy report mentioned. Humans chased prey to exhaustion on their homeworld. But Crag isn't prey, he's an apex predator. To humans, Zexthor said slowly, everything is prey. 30 minutes into the match, Crag stumbled. Just slightly, but Sarah saw it. She'd been tracking his movements, cataloging every sign of fatigue. Time to shift strategies. She stopped retreating. Crag, sensing the change, gathered himself for another charge. This time, Sarah stood her ground, rifle aimed. She fired a full burst, not at his body but at the ground directly in front of him. Rock fragments and dust exploded upward, momentarily blinding him. Sarah moved. Not away but forward and to the side. As Crag swung his maul blindly, she was already inside his reach, too close for the massive weapon to be effective. Her knife, small and primitive by galactic standards, found the gap between bone spurs at his armpit, a joint she'd identified during the chase. The blade sank deep. Crag howled, stumbling backward. His regeneration would heal the wound in minutes, but minutes mattered. Sarah didn't retreat this time. She pressed, staying inside his reach where his size was a disadvantage. When he swung, she ducked under. When he kicked, she rolled aside. And each time her blade found another gap. Another joint. Another weak point. The crowd had gone silent, watching something they'd never seen before. A creature one-third her opponent's size, systematically dismantling a warrior who'd won 47 consecutive matches. 40 minutes in, Crag dropped to one knee. His regeneration was struggling to keep up with accumulated damage. Blood, thick and green, pooled beneath him. His tusked face showed confusion. How was this tiny, fragile creature still moving? Still attacking? Sarah stood before him, breathing hard but steady. "Yield," she said quietly. Crag looked at her with something approaching respect. Then he lowered his head. "I yield." The arena erupted in chaos. Cheers, shouts of disbelief, outrage from those who'd bet against her. The medical team rushed in to attend to Crag, whose wounds, while numerous, were already beginning to heal. Sarah walked back to the staging area, her knife cleaned and sheathed, her rifle slung across her back. Zexthor met her at the entrance, his four eyes wide. "That was..." He struggled for words. "Your species file says you're class 5. Negligible threat." Sarah smiled, that predator's smile. "Commander, on Earth we have a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog." She paused. "Also, humans didn't reach the top of our food chain by being fair. We got there by being relentless. The Academy will need to revise its assessment." "Good," Sarah said. "Because that was just the warm-up. The mind game." The victory over Crag the Ravager had transformed Sarah Chen from a curiosity into a phenomenon. Within hours, footage of the match spread across the Concordance networks. Analysis programs dissected every movement, every tactical decision. Military strategists from a dozen species requested copies for study. In the competitors' quarters, Sarah sat in meditation, her eyes closed, breathing slow and measured. Tomorrow brought a different kind of challenge, one she couldn't defeat with endurance and tactics alone. "Representative Chin?" A hesitant knock interrupted her focus. Sarah opened her eyes to find a young luminary standing in her doorway, its energy form flickering with nervous colors. "Yes. I am called Brightwing at Dawn. I compete in Division 3. The being's light pulsed with what Sarah's translator interpreted as anxiety. "I wanted to warn you about your next opponent. Sisratha of the Scythian Hive. She is different." "Different how?" "She kills with the mind." Brightwing's colors shifted to dark purple, fear. The Scythians are psychic predators. SSS Ratha projects fear directly into her opponent's consciousness. Most surrender before physical combat even begins. Those who resist. The luminary dimmed. "I watched her break a KRWL warrior's mind in the semifinals last cycle. He still hasn't recovered. He sees monsters that aren't there." Sarah nodded slowly. "Thank you for the warning. How will you defend against something that attacks your thoughts?" Brightwing asked. "Your species has no natural psychic shielding according to the databases." "No," Sarah agreed. "We don't." She didn't elaborate, and after a moment, the luminary departed, leaving her alone with her preparations. Commander Zexthor found her an hour later in the station's database archives, reviewing everything available on Scythian psychology and combat methodology. "You should be resting," he said. "Tomorrow's match will require me to understand my opponent," Sarah finished. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know about human evolution and fear?" Zexthor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Your file mentions susceptibility to anxiety disorders and stress responses. High cortisol production. Your amygdala, the fear center, is quite active compared to most species." "Exactly." Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing the human brain. "Humans feel fear intensely. Our ancestors needed to. Every shadow could hide a predator, every strange sound could mean death. But here's what makes us different. We learn to act despite the fear, not because we don't feel it." "I don't understand the distinction." Most species in the galaxy evolved to trust their instincts. If something feels dangerous, they avoid it, smart survival strategy. But humans? We questioned our instincts. We walked toward the danger to understand it. We felt the fear and did it anyway. Sarah's eyes reflected the holographic light. That's not courage, Commander. That's something deeper. It's defiance. SSS Ratha will flood your mind with terror. Primal, overwhelming terror. I know. Sarah smiled grimly. I'm counting on it. The next day, the arena configuration was different. A circular platform surrounded by darkness, forcing close-quarters engagement. No place to run, no room for persistence hunting. This would be a test of pure willpower. The crowd's anticipation was electric. The unknown human who defeated Crag was now facing a feared psychic warrior. The betting pools had shifted dramatically, though still favored SSS Ratha 3-1. Sarah entered the arena to a roar of voices. She carried no rifle this time, only her knife and a small cylindrical device on her belt. A human audio player, she'd explained to the confused equipment officer. SSS Ratha emerged from the opposite entrance. The Scythian was serpentine, 3 meters of scaled muscle flowing across the platform. Her head was angular, almost dragon-like, with multiple eyes that glowed with an inner violet light. Those eyes were her weapon, the focal point of her psychic assault. She wore minimal armor. She rarely needed physical protection when opponents collapsed before reaching her. Match 8, SSS Ratha, Scythian Hive, versus Sarah Chin, Human Confederation. Begin. SS Ratha didn't move. She simply fixed all 6 eyes on Sarah and unleashed her power. The psychic assault was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah's vision filled with nightmares made manifest. Every fear she'd ever experienced amplified 1,000-fold. Darkness closing in. Drowning in ice-cold water. Falling from impossible heights. Worst of all, the faces of soldiers she'd failed to save, accusing her, reaching for her with dead hands. In the gallery, Zexthor tensed, expecting the human to collapse like so many before her. Sarah's knees buckled. She gasped, her face contorting in pain. The fear was real, chemical and electric, flooding her system with cortisol and adrenaline. Every nerve screamed at her to surrender, to escape, to make it stop. But she didn't. Instead, Sarah did something SSS Ratha had never encountered. She activated the audio device on her belt. Music filled the arena, a human composition, heavy percussion and driving rhythm. The crowd found it primitive, discordant. But to Sarah it was an anchor. She trained to this music, fought to it, survived to it. Her hand found the rhythm, tapping against her thigh. What is she doing? Vess whispered. Giving herself something to focus on besides the fear, Zexthor realized. Humans use music to regulate emotion. It's activating different neural pathways. Sarah stood, still shaking, still feeling every ounce of terror SSS Ratha projected. But she took one step forward. Then another. SSS Ratha's eyes blazed brighter, intensifying the assault. Sarah saw her daughter. She had no daughter, but the image was perfect anyway, crying out as monsters dragged her into darkness. She saw Earth burning, her homeworld consumed by fire. She saw herself alone, abandoned, forgotten. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. Her breath came in ragged gasps. But her feet kept moving. Impossible, SSS Ratha hissed, speaking for the first time. You should be catatonic. I feel your fear, it is overwhelming. How do you move? Sarah's voice was strained but steady, because fear doesn't control me. Another step. I've been afraid, every day, of my life. Another step. Fear kept my ancestors alive. Made us cautious. Smart. She was halfway across the platform now. But we learned to be afraid, and do it anyway. The crowd was silent, witnessing something unprecedented. A being walking through psychic assault that should have shattered her mind. SSS Ratha increased her power to maximum, something she rarely needed to do. The psychic pressure was visible now, a violet aura surrounding both combatants. Sarah screamed. The pain was real, the fear was real, the trauma was real. But she kept walking. Your species profile says you are weak. SSS Ratha's composure cracked. Class 5. Negligible. The profile. Sarah was 10 meters away now, was wrong. She reached for her knife, her hand shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. Every instinct screamed at her to curl up, to protect herself, to surrender. The fear was a living thing inside her, trying to tear her apart from within. But humans had lived with fear for 200,000 years. They'd learned to make it a companion rather than a master. 5 meters. Sarah could see her reflection in SSS Ratha's eyes, face pale, covered in sweat, tears streaming. She looked broken. But broken didn't mean defeated. This is impossible. SSS Ratha began to retreat, the first time in her career she'd backed away from an opponent. Your mind should be destroyed. My mind. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper now, has survived worse. 3 meters. 2. 1. Sarah's knife found SSS Ratha's throat, not to kill but to rest against the scales. One thrust would end it. The Scythian froze, her psychic assault faltering in her shock. Yield, Sarah said, and her voice carried absolute conviction despite the tears, despite the shaking, despite everything. Ratha's eyes dimmed. I yield. The psychic pressure released instantly. Sarah collapsed to her knees, gasping, her body finally allowing the full weight of what she'd endured to register. Medical teams rushed to both competitors. Zexthor reached Sarah first. Your neural activity readings were off the scale. You should have lost consciousness. Sarah looked up at him and despite her exhaustion, despite everything, she smiled. Commander, humans have a saying, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. She accepted his help standing. Every human carries fear every day. We just learn to walk with it. The Academy's assessment needs another revision, Sarah finished. Because the most dangerous species isn't the one without fear. It's the one that faces fear and moves forward anyway. The pack. Sarah Chin spent 3 days in medical observation following her match with SSS Ratha. The psychic assault had left no physical damage, but the Concordance medical staff insisted on monitoring her neural patterns. What they found fascinated and disturbed them in equal measure. Your brain chemistry is still elevated, Dr. Velas, a Therosian physician, explained while reviewing her scans. Cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, all stress hormones remain above baseline. Yet you show no signs of psychological trauma. I've been trained to process stress, Sarah said, performing a series of stretching exercises on the medical bay floor. Human military conditioning includes exposure to controlled trauma. We learn to compartmentalize, to function under pressure. But the fear you experienced was biochemically identical to actual mortal danger. Your body believes it survived a life-threatening event. It did. Sarah finished her stretches and stood. Fear is fear whether the threat is real or projected. The response is the same. Dr. Velas's sensory tendrils quivered with confusion. How does your species accomplish anything if you're constantly in survival mode? We're not constantly in survival mode. We just have a wider tolerance for stress than most species assume. Sarah pulled on her training clothes. Doctor, can I ask you something? What's the most afraid you've ever been? The Therosian thought carefully. When I was young, I encountered a predator on my homeworld. I felt terror for approximately 45 seconds until I reached safety. 45 seconds. Sarah nodded. Human soldiers can operate in continuous fear for days, weeks, even months during extended combat deployments. We learn to treat it like background noise. That seems exhausting. It is. But it also means we don't break easily. Commander Zexthor arrived as Dr. Velas departed. You're cleared for your next match. Though I should warn you, this one will be different again. Different how? Pack tactics. Zexthor pulled up a holographic display. The Fenrir Collective has entered 3 warriors, Rend, Tyr, and Savage. They'll fight as a coordinated unit. It's permitted under the rules since they share a hive-mind connection. Sarah studied the images. The Fenrir were impressive, wolf-like creatures standing 2 meters tall at the shoulder when on all fours, covered in metallic fur that could conduct and redirect energy. Their claws could slice through standard armor, and their plasma-generating organs allowed them to spit superheated bolts. 3 against 1? The Concordance rules allow it if the collective species requests special accommodation for their natural fighting style. The Fenrir argue they evolved as pack hunters. To separate them would be like forcing you to fight without arms. Zexthor's mandibles clicked apologetically. You can request a handicap, perhaps reduced arena size or no handicap. Sarah zoomed in on the Fenrir images, studying their musculature, their stance, the way their eyes focused. But I'll need different equipment. And I want to review Earth files on wolfpack behavior. Earth wolves? Your homeworld predators. Yes. If the Fenrir evolved pack tactics, there might be parallels. Sarah smiled slightly. Besides, humans have been dealing with pack predators for our entire existence. We learned a few tricks. The next 48 hours, Sarah barely slept. She studied everything available on Fenrir combat tactics. watched recordings of their previous matches, and spent hours in the training simulator running scenarios. Zexthor watched from the observation deck as she practiced movements that seemed strange, dropping prone, rolling, constantly repositioning. She's preparing to fight multiple opponents simultaneously, Vess observed. But how? She cannot watch all directions at once. Humans have limited sensory capability compared to most species, Zexthor agreed. No echolocation, no thermal vision, no electromagnetic sense. But they compensate somehow. On the day of the match, the arena was configured as a rocky canyon with multiple levels and tight passages, terrain that favored the Fenrir's climbing ability and pack coordination. The crowd was the largest yet, word having spread that the unusual human was facing her greatest challenge. Sarah entered the arena carrying her kinetic rifle, her knife, and several devices the equipment officer had been puzzled by: small reflective panels, climbing rope, and what appeared to be simple metal stakes. The Fenrir entered from 3 different points, immediately taking high ground positions that gave them overlapping fields of fire. Their coordination was flawless, one mind controlling 3 bodies. Where one looked, the others compensated, leaving no blind spots. Begin. The Fenrir attacked immediately, Rend and Tyr leaping down from opposite sides while Savage provided covering fire with plasma bolts. It was a perfect pincer movement, meant to overwhelm through simultaneous pressure from multiple angles. Sarah didn't try to fight them. Instead, she ran deeper into the canyon, using the terrain's tight passages where the larger Fenrir would have to approach single file. As she ran, she planted the metal stakes into cracks in the rocks, trailing the rope between them at ankle height. She's setting traps, Zexthor realized. Basic but effective. The Fenrir, sharing one mind, recognized the strategy instantly. They split their approach. Savage continued pursuit while Rend and Tyr climbed the canyon walls to attack from above. Their metallic fur sparked as they generated plasma charges. Sarah reached a wider section of the canyon and turned, bringing her rifle up. She fired not at the pursuing Savage, but at the reflective panels she'd strategically placed during her run. The kinetic rounds ricocheted at angles, forcing the Fenrir on the walls to dodge, disrupting their positioning. Savage leaped forward, claws extended. Sarah dropped flat, and the Fenrir sailed over her, crashing into the tripwire she'd set. The creature stumbled, not enough to truly hinder it, but enough to break the pack's coordination for a crucial second. That second was all Sarah needed. She rolled, came up behind a boulder and fired 3 precise shots at Tyr, who was exposed on the canyon wall. The round struck its shoulder joint, causing it to lose grip and fall 10 meters to the canyon floor. 2-on-1 now temporarily. Rend howled, a sound of fury that echoed off the canyon walls, and charged, abandoning tactical coordination for rage. Sarah had been counting on that. Humans understood pack animals because they'd been both their prey and their competitors. She knew that disrupting the pack structure created chaos. She met Rend's charge not by fleeing but by moving toward it at an angle, sliding under its leap and dragging her knife across its exposed belly. The blade skittered off the metallic fur but found a gap between armor plates. Not a fatal wound but painful. Savage recovered and attacked again, and this time Sarah couldn't fully evade. Claws raked across her armor, tearing through the outer layer. Pain bloomed in her side, first blood to the Fenrir. But pain was just information. Sarah used her momentum from the dodge to roll toward where Tyr was recovering from its fall. The Fenrir, still dazed, tried to rise. Sarah's knife found its throat, not deep enough to kill through the armor, but positioned so that any movement would drive the blade deeper. Stop. The Fenrir's shared voice commanded, and all 3 creatures froze. You would kill Tyr? If you force me to, Sarah said, breathing hard, blood seeping from her side. But I'd prefer you yield. We are 3. You are 1. We still have advantage. Do you? Sarah's voice was cold. I have a blade at Tyr's throat. Your hive mind means you feel everything each body feels, right? If Tyr dies, part of you dies. Can you accept that loss and continue fighting? Because humans can. The canyon fell silent except for Sarah's controlled breathing and the Fenrir's collective growl. You're bluffing, Ren snarled. Try me. Sarah's eyes were hard. Humans hunted wolf packs on our homeworld. We learned their tactics, their strengths, their weaknesses. You know what we discovered? Pack predators rely on coordination and numbers. But they also rely on every member surviving. A pack won't risk losing members for uncertain gain. We are not earth wolves. No, you're smarter. Which means you're smart enough to know when you're beaten. Sarah pressed the knife slightly harder. You could probably kill me. But Tyr dies first. Are you willing to pay that price? The hive mind calculated, and Sarah could almost see the decision being made across 3 sets of eyes. Finally, all 3 Fenrir lowered their heads. We yield. The crowd exploded in disbelief. 3 against 1, and the human had won by understanding pack psychology better than the pack itself. As medical teams attended to all 4 combatants, Sarah's wound was shallow but needed sealing. Zexthor approached with an expression of wonder. You turned their greatest strength into a weakness. Sarah winced as the medical gel was applied. Commander, humans spent thousands of years as both predators and prey. We learned to think like both. Pack tactics work great until someone targets the pack's cohesion instead of its individual members. The Academy assessment. Still wrong, Sarah interrupted, managing a tired smile. Because the Academy assumes strength is about physical power or psychic ability or numbers. They haven't learned what humans know. Real strength is adaptability. We survive not because we're the strongest or fastest or most numerous. We survive because we learn, we adapt, and we never stop thinking. Zexthor's mandibles clicked slowly. You have one more challenge. The final trial, the Hellscape Run. It's a survival course designed to test every aspect of a warrior's capability. Many species can't complete it even with their natural advantages. Then I'll complete it with my natural advantage. Which is? Sarah's predator smile returned. Stubbornness. The Hellscape. The Hellscape Run was not a competition against other beings. It was a war against the arena itself. Commander Zexthor stood in the observation gallery overlooking the massive environmental dome that housed the challenge. Beside him, representatives from a dozen species watched the preparation with morbid fascination. The human had become a phenomenon. Her victories had forced military analysts across the Concordance to reconsider everything they thought they knew about threat assessment. The Hellscape has a 37% completion rate, Zexthor explained to the gathered diplomats. Those who fail are typically extracted before fatal injury, but the psychological trauma often ends their combat careers. The Vraxian ambassador clicked his mandibles skeptically. And this human believes she can succeed where trained warriors of superior species have failed? She has surprised us before. Zexthor pulled up the course specifications on a holographic display. Phase 1. The thermal wastes, temperatures exceeding 60 degrees Celsius with minimal water. Phase 2. The frozen void, sub-zero temperatures, thin atmosphere. Phase 3. The toxic bog, poisonous gases, aggressive microorganisms. Phase 4. The gravity well, 5 times standard gravity. Phase 5. The predator's maze, autonomous combat drones programmed to hunt. How long do competitors have? 72 hours. Most fail within the first 12. Below in the staging area, Sarah Chen methodically checked her equipment. The Concordance allowed full loadout for the Hellscape. This wasn't about fair fighting, it was about survival. Sheet-packed water purification tablets, thermal regulators, medical supplies, energy bars designed for human metabolism, and her faithful kinetic rifle with extra ammunition. Dr. Velis approached, carrying a final medical assessment. Your wound from the Fenrir match is healed, but your body is showing accumulated stress. Muscle micro-tears, elevated inflammation markers, depleted mineral reserves. You should rest for at least a week before attempting this. Can't, Sarah said simply. If I wait, the moment is lost. Momentum matters. Representative Chen, this course could kill you. The thermal extremes alone. Doctor, I've operated in desert temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius and Arctic conditions below -40. Humans have survived in nearly every environment Earth offers, and Earth is remarkably hostile. Sarah secured her pack. We're not built for any specific environment. We're built to adapt to all of them. Zexthor descended to the staging area. Last chance to reconsider. Not interested in reconsidering, Commander? But I am interested in something else. Sarah turned to face him fully. When I complete this, not if, when, I want the Academy's assessment of humanity officially revised. That's presumptuous. Is it? I've beaten a regenerating warrior in endurance combat, walked through psychic assault that should have shattered my mind, and outthought a hive mind pack. All as a supposedly Class 5 negligible threat. Her eyes were hard. How many more times do I need to prove the assessment is dangerously wrong? Zexthor's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. I'll forward your request to the Concordance Council. But first you need to survive. I will. Sarah picked up her pack. Because that's what humans do. The entry portal opened, revealing a shimmering barrier, the threshold to the Hellscape. Sarah took a deep breath, checked her gear one final time and stepped through. Phase 1. The thermal wastes. Heat struck like a physical blow. The environment was merciless, cracked earth, shimmering mirages, and a sun that seemed to fill half the sky. Temperature reading, 62 degrees Celsius. Most species would begin suffering heat stroke within minutes. Sarah immediately activated her cooling vest, a human-designed garment that circulated chilled fluid close to major blood vessels. She wrapped a cloth around her head and face, reducing sun exposure. Then she checked her compass bearing and started walking. Not running, walking. Conserving energy. She trained in desert survival. The key was steady pace, regular water intake, and avoiding the hottest parts of the day. Except there was no cool part of the day here. The sun never set in Phase 1. 6 hours in, Sarah's water supply was half depleted. The cooling vest was struggling, its power reserves draining faster than anticipated. Her skin felt like leather despite the protection. But she kept moving, one foot in front of the other. Her core temperature is approaching dangerous levels, Dr. Velis reported in the observation gallery. But still within survivable range, Zexthor noted. Barely. 12 hours in, Sarah found the Phase 1 exit, a sealed door that required solving a complex puzzle lock while in heat-induced delirium. Her hands shook as she worked the mechanism, sweat dripping into her eyes. The puzzle was designed to be difficult for oxygen-deprived, heat-stressed brains. Sarah closed her eyes, controlled her breathing, and remembered her training. Heat exhaustion caused confusion, but pattern recognition could be maintained with focus. She visualized the lock mechanism, tested combinations methodically rather than frantically. The door opened. Cold air rushed out. Sarah stumbled through. Phase 2, the frozen void. The temperature drop was instant and brutal, from 60 degrees to -40 in seconds. Thin atmosphere meant each breath brought insufficient oxygen. Most species would collapse immediately from the shock. Sarah's body, already stressed from heat exhaustion, went into emergency response. Shivering began immediately, her muscles generating heat through rapid contractions. She activated thermal packs, pressed them against her core, and forced herself to keep moving despite the cold that made every joint scream. The thin atmosphere was worse than the cold. Each breath felt empty, insufficient. Sarah recognized the symptoms of altitude sickness: dizziness, nausea, confusion. She'd experienced it before in Earth's mountains. She slowed her pace, took measured breaths, and gave her body time to adjust. Humans were exceptional at altitude adaptation. Their blood could generate more oxygen-carrying red cells in response to low oxygen. It just took time. Time she didn't have. Sarah pushed forward, using emergency oxygen sparingly, rationing it for when she absolutely needed it. The cold made her old wound from the Fenrir match ache. Her fingers grew numb despite insulated gloves. 8 hours in the frozen hell and she found the Phase 2 exit. This time the puzzle required fine motor control, threading a cable through increasingly smaller loops. With numb fingers, Sarah removed her gloves, knowing frostbite was a risk, but needing dexterity more than warmth. Her fingers were clumsy, nearly frozen, but human hands were remarkably precise instruments even under duress. The cable threaded through. Phase 3, the toxic bog. Poisonous gases, acidic water, organisms designed to attack any biological tissue they contacted. Sarah activated her breathing mask and sealed her suit as much as possible. The bog was designed to defeat species relying on natural armor or regeneration. The toxins would seep through any gap, the acids would corrode any protection eventually. But Sarah had studied Earth's most toxic environments, from sulfur springs to chemical warfare scenarios. She moved carefully, testing each step, using dead vegetation as bridges where possible. When organisms attached to her suit, she scraped them off with her knife. When gaps in her seal allowed toxin exposure, she used her medical kit to neutralize the chemical burns. 16 hours in the bog. Every breath through the mask's filters, every step measured, every moment a calculation of risk versus progress. She reached the Phase 3 exit covered in chemical burns, her suit degraded but alive. Phase 4, the gravity well. 5 times Earth's gravity meant every movement was agonizing. Sarah's pack felt like it weighed hundreds of pounds. Each step required the effort of climbing stairs. Her own body weight crushed down on her joints. But Earth's gravity at 1 g had shaped human evolution. Strong leg muscles, efficient cardiovascular system, bones dense enough to support body weight. Humans were built for gravity in a way many spacefaring species, evolved on low-gravity worlds, were not. Sarah stripped her pack to essentials, went to hands and knees and crawled. It wasn't dignified, but dignity didn't complete challenges. She crawled for 6 hours, her muscles screaming, until she reached the Phase 4 exit. Phase 5, the Predator's Maze. Combat drones. Autonomous hunters with thermal sensors, motion detectors, and weapons designed to incapacitate. Most competitors tried to fight their way through. Sarah hid instead. She'd saved her rifle ammunition for this phase. She moved in short bursts, always toward cover, using the maze's complexity against the drone's programming. When drones approached, she remained motionless. Human body temperature could be lowered through controlled breathing, making thermal detection harder. When concealment failed, she fought. Her kinetic rifle had one advantage over energy weapons: no heat signature before firing. She could ambush drones before they detected the threat. 12 hours in the maze. 43 drones disabled or evaded. Sarah reached the final exit, her ammunition nearly depleted, her body pushed beyond any reasonable limit. She emerged into the observation gallery staging area and collapsed. The crowd erupted in chaos. Medical teams rushed forward. Dr. Velas's scanner showed vital signs that should have been impossible: elevated stress hormones, muscle damage, chemical exposure, thermal injury, oxygen deprivation, yet still functioning. Zexthor reached Sarah as the medical team stabilized her. 70 hours and 18 minutes. You completed the Hellscape run. Sarah's voice was hoarse. The assessment will be revised. Zexthor's mandibles clicked with something approaching respect. The Concordance Council is already drafting the new classification. Humanity will be reclassified as a Class 2 species with special notation for adaptive capability and psychological resilience. Class 2. Sarah managed a weak smile despite her exhaustion. Still, underestimating us. Perhaps. But it's a start. Zexthor helped the medical team move her to a stretcher. Representative Chin, you've proven something important today. The Academy declared humans harmless based on physical attributes. They failed to measure the one thing that makes your species truly dangerous. What's that? You refuse to quit. Ever. Under any circumstances. Zexthor's expression was hard to read. Physical strength can be overcome. Psychic power can be defended against. Superior numbers can be outmaneuvered. But how do you defeat a species that simply won't stop, no matter what you throw at them? Sarah closed her eyes as the medical team administered pain relief. You don't, Commander. That's the point. Humans didn't reach the top of Earth's food chain because we were the strongest or fastest or most dangerous. We got there because when everything else gave up, we took one more step. When every instinct said stop, we kept going. When the universe said impossible, we said watch me. The arena proved the Academy wrong, Zexthor said quietly. No, Sarah corrected, her voice fading as exhaustion and medication claimed her. The arena just gave us a chance to show what we've always been. Earth made us survivors. The universe just gave us a bigger challenge to survive. As Sarah was carried to medical bay, Zexthor watched the replay footage of her 70-hour ordeal. Somewhere in the Concordance, military strategists were having very uncomfortable conversations. The Academy's assessment hadn't just been wrong, it had been dangerously, catastrophically wrong. Humanity wasn't harmless. They were perhaps the most dangerous species in the galaxy, precisely because they appeared harmless until tested. And once tested, they revealed a capacity for endurance, adaptation, and sheer stubborn persistence that no other species could match. The arena had proven them wrong. And the galaxy would never make that mistake again.